Hello and welcome to the Dead Air Dudes. I'm Izzy.
I'm Raka.
E.
Keeping with the letters PBJ.
And today we're going to give you a craft beer, more specifically a IPA 101. So
A tutorial, if you will.
there you go. So when we talk about a certain beer, you guys know what we're talking about. And for those who don't, those who do, cool. So E, you want to start off or you want me to start?
Sure, IPA, you'll hear that phrase, that acronym, India Pale Ale.
Yep.
So dissect that, and basically what you have is a variation on a pale ale. Pale ale's been around for a long time, and India Pale Ale's been around since the 1800s, mid-1900s, 19th century. It's just a different way of brewing the hops. Typically, IPAs have a little more alcohol to a lot more alcohol than the average beer. They range from mid-4s all the way up to, I've seen 16, 17%. Yeah.
That's a question. Did you hear the quote-unquote story behind how the India Pale Ale was born?
I've heard it, but regale us with that tale.
Does that have anything to do with India?
Yeah?
Actually, it does. The popular origin story is that in the late 18th century, George Hodgson, a brewer of the Bow Bower Brewery in East London, began sending his pale ale to India, packed with extra hops and increased alcohol content. Both the hops and alcohol helped to preserve the beer during its long journey from England to India.
Oh, that's why.
This created a bitter and stronger pale ale that was more refreshing in the hot Indian climate compared to the dark ales and porters that were popular in London at the time. And
So
lo and behold, the IPA was born.
basically, it was created out of a need to be able to transport a pale ale the distance that it needed to go to India.
Without refrigeration.
Exactly.
Right. So and it actually lost its it lost popularity until very recently. Craft breweries are so almost solely responsible for bringing IPAs back, and
On
I'm
purpose?
thankful for that because it's my favorite one.
Would it be on purpose, or they just found a niche that they can grow into?
It just kind of happened during the 70s and 80s. That's when the craft beer revolution originally started. And they tried to replicate the old recipes from back in the day. And the brewers in America revived the original recipes that were done 150 years before, whilst adding new styles of hops and all kinds of stuff. So, which in turn, that's how the American India Pale Ale was created. So, you have an English style IPA, which is the original, the closest to, how they made it back then. And then you have your American IPA, which,
Okay, so getting back to the IPA,
Right.
it's now been developed.
Yes.
It's been resurgent. It's the resurgent of the old ways of making it from 150 plus years ago. Where are we now?
Now, like, everyone throws anything in the mother. I can give an example, and I'm giving you a good example. Evil Twin. They will toss everything in their mother inside.
Sometimes
I've had the mother beer.
Have the crazy names, and it works. You will rarely have a beer that doesn't taste good, but they have all kinds of crazy combinations, all kinds of crazy hops, all kinds of crazy freaking, all kinds of things and flavors and.
So, from a person that doesn't know A from Z about beers, what's your big difference take between a regular beer on the shelf and then the IPAs?
IPAs are going to be a little more hoppy. They have lots of different variations. For
Yep.
example, the British IPA is the traditional IPA, the one where and they keep it that way in Britain. The hops are put in there specifically in a way to mimic the formula that they had when they had to travel to India. Uh,
Is there a good brand that we can sample that's closest to that?
Well, a good example of an English IPA, at least in the American style, would be Goose Island. The
Okay.
regular Goose Island IPA is a perfect example of what, I mean,
That'd be a good base.
yeah, it's a less intense hop flavor and more balanced by the malt in the beer. The colors range from golden to deep amber, and
I
the
love a good
range
deep
of the
amber.
ABV is 5% to 7%.
the next one, the next one you have is the West Coast IPA. They tend to be a little more fruity, a fruity hop.
Any
West
reason for
Coast,
this, or just
most
West
of
Coast?
no, well, West Coast. That's the Stone Brewing Company is a classic one.
Okay, that's a good name.
Sierra Nevada is another one.
Yep.
I like those.
Especially the Sierra Nevada. I mean, Stone. Listen, Stone's a home run brewery. Sierra Nevada has been around for a long time. People know them. Stone is just great too. I mean, that's the West Coast IPA. And then you got something a little more hearty, the New England style NEPA, right? What we call NEPA,
Yep.
New England style IPA.
And that's characteristic by.
Well, it's hazy, more so than the West Coast. But it's just hazy. West Coast isn't hazy.
And why is it hazy?
Well, it means it's unfiltered.
There you go.
So it
Oh, we
has
love
no
unfiltered here on
bitterness.
Dead Air
Give
Dudes.
an example. This is a regular ale, and you see how clear it is. And when you have a hazy or a NEPA or a DEPA and it's hazy, it looks like you
Can't see through it.
basically.
You basically put a cloud inside of a clear beer.
Pretty much.
Then you got the East. Then you got the Northeast. You got the West Coast, and of course you have to have the East Coast. That is what I consider to be. I'm from the East Coast, I'm also in New England to some degree, close enough anyway.
You're double dipping.
Yeah, well, I think it's the official IPA. Okay, it is literally the difference between the British and the West Coast IPA because it's the middle. It's got a hoppy, piney, salt, a malt backbone flavor to it. It's not remember West Coast is going to be pretty bright. Northeast is going to be hazy, and this is going to be closer to that.
The West Coast usually hop forward with a piney floor and citrus notes and a strong.
Nice. Look
Like
at
give
that.
an example. The closest thing that we would know on the East Coast to a West Coast from an East Coast perspective would be Rebel IPA. Sam Adams, it takes the West Coast style and brings it to the East Coast. Now, that's one example. But usually the West Coast, you smell it, the aroma, it'll hit you, boom, it's dank, it's very
It says,
floral,
"Bam, out the door, I'm here."
very hoppy, and it'll hit you like that. While the East Coast, with the NEPAs and the DEPAs and everything else, would be more of a hazy type of,
Quick
different-
sidebar: anything from where PBJ is, because it's under a tropical rainfall depression right now.
Seems that way, right?
Yes.
He's prepared. He just came in. If everybody out there, he just came in from the storm outside just to join in. Thank you, PBJ.
So another main East Coast IPA is like Dogfish.
I've had Dogfish too. Very good. Yes.
And Victory Hop Devil is another one. That one's a little less common, but you'll see the Dogfish everywhere.
Can you guys describe for novice or uninformed people how can you describe hoppy?
It has a very like a
Bitter
bang,
bite.
like a burst of flavor in your mouth at the outset.
Good burst of flavor.
Yeah, it's not a beer taste.
Wheat like wheat filled.
No.
No,
Would you say it's a little bit more of a bitter bite?
I'm gonna say something which might offend some beer lovers, and I'm a beer lover
Please
myself.
offend. Please go for it.
But all right, what hoppiness is to me, or whatever, like before I drank IPAs and I drank from domestic, from imported, from Coronas to this, I would say, and then
Hey, don't
beer,
mind Corona.
you drink it, and you're like, holy shit, the beer is bad. It's not the beer is bad. It has that funky taste, that bittery like assertive taste that you're like, whoa, you're not used to it. Now, once you get accustomed to drinking IPAs, you start to search for that hoppiness, that taste, that extra flavor, which is what is the hoppiness, at least to me. So,
Yes, interesting.
We have there's a bunch of other IPAs. I just want to get one in there. That's a really popular one before we move on because we can keep going with the kinds.
okay.
Sour IPA. It is what it sounds like. It's sour.
That definitely sounds like it needs its own standalone.
It is an own standalone. It's equal parts tart, juicy, fruity, but sour.
If you get a bunch of sour chans and you melt them down and you throw them in a beer. I mean,
some
more
of them.
than that, but I mean, yeah. But,
Sour Skittles with
what is that
alcohol.
old sour thing you used to, the sour ball, sour patch used to
Like
eat?
lemon drops and sour
yeah,
patch.
lemon heads. You
Sour-
had cherry chans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Sour patches mostly.
sour patch.
And by the way, the sour IPAs, I think I'm pretty sure this is true, and I've read it before. Sour IPAs, I think, are one of the oldest kinds of beers out there. Sour beer. I think it's the oldest beer out there. Somebody could prove me wrong, but that's what I've read. And it is, by the way, there's a bunch of other kinds of IPA, but those are the most popular ones. Now, let's get into the things you'll see on the labeling. You'll see things like dry hopped, double dry hopped, triple dry hopped.
Doubles and triples. Who doesn't love those?
Right. So basically, obviously, the process of dry hopping is of fermenting beer. All right.
You'll see DDH. You'll see all kinds of different. It'll be double IPA or a DEPA. It'll be DDH. It'll say double dry hopped. There's a million different ways to describe
But
it.
with those doubles now, you're talking about packing more punch too.
Exactly. A double IPA, or what they will call, what depending, you can call it an imperial IPA. Essentially they have the hoppiness, to 11. To balance the hops, the brewers use more malt, which create a higher alcohol content.
It's
And we're all for that.
Exactly.
It's an IPA on steroids.
Exactly. A strong hop flavor and aroma with piney floral, resinous, and citrus notes. Now, of course, that's your
No, that's a mouthful.
that's your borderline definition, of course. Now you have so many breweries that they've blurred the line of what a DEPA is and what a West Coast is and what an Imperial is and what a NEPA is, that now you have hazy DEPAs and you have freaking, hop forward, DDH, and you have a dry hop triple. You have triples now, or triples for that matter, which have a super high alcohol content and they're super smooth.
Like IPA Supreme. Just throw everything in there.
Yeah. That's another thing you hear when a beer is juicy and you say, "Whoa, it's a beer. How can it be juicy?" Explain that, E.
How can a beer be juicy? Well, it's sort of like taking a beer and adding a little bit of carbonation, but it has the texture of, like, it's gonna sound weird, but like an actual juice, like
Exactly.
orange. That's what we mean. What we mean when we say juicy. You'll know it when you taste it. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
What is the importance of the head on the beer?
Well, that's why you get your flavor and aroma. It also practically makes you less full. So if you drank the beer right out of the, and by the way, different beers, different kinds have different kinds of heads. Sometimes you can't get
So she said,
Sometimes you can't get the head you want. Okay, just saying. But if you're at a bar and you're eating, the best thing to do is to ask for a glass if you get a bottle beer, because if you drink it out of the bottle and you eat the food, you're gonna get full real fast. Whereas if you pour it out and get the gas and develop the head, you'll get a better flavor of the beer, better taste, better experience, and you'll still be able to eat probably more than you should, but you won't get full.
Is it kind of like letting the beer air?
It's releasing the gases, so those gases don't get released in your stomach.
Exactly. So you figure everything in here, if you just pour it and you have a huge head, and
It
you
releases a bit of an explosion into the glass rather than happening.
all that is, if you drink it from the thing, it'll.
Well, you guys certainly getting me turned on.
Now
It's an oral explosion.
In your mouth because of gas that you're releasing
on your
instead of
stomach,
in your belly.
in your
All right.
gut,
Excellent.
all that foam, all that white stuff inside.
All right. Now we're going to talk about hop. There's a big thing when you see on bottles now, cans, it's dry hopped. Okay, most of the IPAs are. All right. Not all of them, but it's a big ploy to get people to buy the dry hopped. Double dry hopped is a virtually meaningless process. It doesn't add any more aroma. It doesn't add any more fruity, piney.
But it adds alcohol.
No.
It doesn't spike up the alcohol.
No, it doesn't really. No, that's
So why do it? Why say it? It just sounds better.
It's a marketing ploy.
You have a wet hop and you have a dry hop. I mean, it's like double dry hop.
Well, that's what it is, right? That's
Wet
exactly
hop.
what it is.
Yes.
It's
Dry
adding
protection.
Dry hopped means, you're dry hopping is the process of steeping hops and fermenting beer and adding them while the liquid is boiling. That's it. And that creates an extremely strong aroma. You would think double dry hopped gives you twice the bang for your buck, and it doesn't. It just doesn't.
They price it more?
All it does, it gives you more aroma. It gives you more of an aroma, I suppose. That's it. I mean, but I don't think it affects more of the flavor. It doesn't affect more of the alcohol either. And if you double dry hop it, I guess you have what? More than one hop, obviously.
And by the way, there's a such thing as a triple.
Hence the double.
It's only rumors, though. And that's equally meaningless.
And nowadays, the price of hops has gone up so much that if you see, you say, oh, you have one hop, two hop, three hops. We have 3, 4 different hops in it. It's not so much because the price of hops is so much that certain hops cost more than the other. So if you're going to put 2 or more hops that are, I'm not going to say less expensive or whatever. This is just, me speculating, who am I, right? I'm just dead or dude.
You're paying for the hop.
I wanted to spell something about IPAs.
Do it.
Not all of them are bitter by any stretch of the imagination.
No, they're
a lot
not.
Of people thought when it first came out, maybe some of them were in the beginning.
When they first came out, yes.
Not as bitter as a Pilsner.
No, it's not. And some of them anyway.
All these IPAs, some of them they're not better than Heineken.
Basically it just adds fruity.
Most of them are better than Heineken's.
It adds some fruity flavors that also come from hops. That's basically about it. And you can get fancy with double dry hopped, Imperial, Deepa, West Coast, but the reality is an IPA is a pale ale on steroids, and it's my favorite beer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think this is a good wrap up for the first IPA 101 installment. To give a good introductory.
There's so much more to talk about. We just have.
We will get to
another episode of this.
Sure. But this provides a pretty good foundation for IPAs moving on forward. Wouldn't you agree?
Definitely.
It gives you the vocabulary when we speak what juicy is, what double dry hopped is, what hopped is.
And how does this relate to Dua Lipa?
What?
Exactly. People.
I heard a lot about Deepa, Lipa, and I want to know how this relates to Dua Lipa.
That's when you take everything that you have in the IPAs and you throw it in the blender. You throw some crushed ice and maybe a cup of Skittles. And you got your sour Deepa Lipa Kalipa. All right, this is Raka.
That's what I thought.
For Izzy, E, and PBJ signing off on our first installment of the 101 sessions in our series of all things Dead Air Dudes.
Knowledge.
Signing in. Thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe and like, and leave your comments below.
Stay safe, everybody. Save the whales, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Yes.